The moment I climbed out of that U-Haul, the Texas sun hit me like a slap, thick and unforgiving, the kind of heat that whispers, "You sure you're cut out for this, pal?" I just rolled into Springvale, a sleepy suburb on the edge of Austin, chasing a quieter life for me, my daughter Ellie, who's 9 and all giggles, and my son Max, 6, with his endless questions. We'd left the grind of DC behind, and I was ready for my slice of Freedoma's sharp single-story house, solar panels gleaming, cedar fence I designed myself, sitting on 2 acres of stubborn, dusty land. I'm Jake Harper, a civil rights lawyer who'd spent years battling in courtrooms, but all I wanted now was to unpack, grill some burgers, and watch my kids run wild in a yard that was ours, free and clear. The deal had closed 3 weeks ago, and here's the clincher. My property wasn't under the Sunvale HOA. That was in black and white, notarized, locked in since a county ruling back in 2004. But Linda Carver, the HOA president, didn't give a damn about my paperwork or my peace. She roared up my driveway in a polished black SUV, Sunvale HOA decal shining like a sheriff's star, before I'd even carried the first box inside. Linda stepped out, her navy blazer crisp, clutching a clipboard thick enough to knock out a coyote. Her smile was all teeth, the kind you see on someone who thinks they own you. "Mr. Harper, I presume," she said, like she'd caught me rifling through her mailbox. "I'm Linda Carver, Sunvale HOA president. This property hasn't been approved for occupancy. You violate our covenants." I was still holding Ellie's stuffed panda, sweat already pooling at my collar. "Ma'am, this lot's exempt," I said, keeping my voice steady. "I've got the deed, the exclusion amendment, a certificate of occupancy so fresh it's practically warm." I reached for the folder in my truck, but she cut me off with a laugh, sharp, like broken glass. "Your papers don't matter. You're within our boundaries, so you play by our rules." 2 guys in Sunvale vests, probably roped into this by Linda's charm, started circling my truck, snapping photos like they were auditioning for CSI. One of them, a wiry guy with a sunburned neck, eyed my front yard like it personally offended him. Ellie peeked out the door, her ponytail bouncing, toothbrush in hand, looking confused. Max was behind her, clutching a toy truck, his eyes wide. My chest tightened. "You're on my land," I said, stepping closer to Linda. "Get moving." She didn't flinch. "No, you're trespassing. Until you submit our compliance packet and pass an architectural review, this truck doesn't budge." I glanced at my watch 7:50 a.m. I had a fridge coming at noon, security cameras to wire, and kids who needed breakfast. "Last warning," I said, locking eyes. "Step off." She smirked, pulling out her phone. "I'm calling the sheriff." I nodded, already dialing. "Good idea. I'm reporting harassment and obstruction of my property rights." 10 minutes later, 2 cruisers pulled up, lights flashing over the cedar trees. Deputy Ramirez, a guy I'd met years ago on a case, did a double take. "Jake Harper? Thought you were still fighting the good fight in D.C. I handed him my folder, deed, plat, and exclusion letter, all pristine. "Just moved in, but I need this lady's permission to unpack my kids' toys." Linda stormed over, her binder flapping like a wounded bird. "Officers, this man's squatting. His documents are forged." Ramirez skimmed my papers, then gave me a long look. "Ma'am, this parcel's outside your HOA. You've got bad info." Linda's face flushed. "His fence color's unapproved. It's a violation." Ramirez rubbed his temple. "You called 911 over a fence. That's a serious misuse of emergency services." She huffed, muttering, "You'll regret this," and peeled out, her SUV kicking up gravel. I figured that was the end of it, just a nosy neighbor with too much time. I was dead wrong. The next morning, I twisted the kitchen faucet, nothing but a hiss. Bathroom, same deal. The smart panel on the wall blinked red, water offline, gas disconnected. My stomach dropped. I called the utility company, wading through their maze of hold music until a rep named Tanya picked up. "Service to 214, Cedar Lane was suspended last night," she said. Sunvale HOA flagged it as non-compliant, signed by Linda Carver. I laughed, but it was hollow. "I'm the owner. There's no HOA here. Turn it back on." She paused. "You'll need to bring documentation in person. This is a formal override claim." I grabbed every scrap of proof: title, county maps, utility confirmations, the 2004 exclusion and drove to the utility office, my knuckles white on the wheel. The regional director, a guy named Paul with a faded Texas flag on his wall, flipped through my folder, his jaw tightening. She claimed to be the property owner, he said. This is blatant misrepresentation. He got on the phone, barking orders, and by late afternoon, my water and gas were back. Paul promised to file a fraud complaint with the city. I drove home, thinking, okay, she's got to be done now. Nope. That night, my phone buzzed at 3:15 a.m. My security system, Sentinel, had caught something motion at the front door. The night vision feed showed Linda, in a baseball cap and gloves, hunched over my smart lock, jamming a tube of expanding foam into the slot. Thick white goo oozed out, ruining the mechanism. My system auto-dialed the sheriff, and by the time I slipped on jeans and grabbed my old Louisville Slugger just in case, 2 deputies had her pinned by her SUV. Explain the foam, ma'am, one said. Linda stammered. I thought the lock was broken. I stepped onto the porch, the cold air biting. Hey, Linda. That's my door you're trashing. She jumped like I'd fired a warning shot. The cops searched her car and found a stash fake violation stickers, a crowbar, and a folder with photos of Ellie and Max at the park, their school name, and many car plates. My blood ran cold. You're stalking my kids, I said, voice low. She snapped. You're a threat. The deputies cuffed her, and I pressed charges, my hands shaking as I signed the form. By morning, Linda was out on bail, standing at the edge of my driveway in a ridiculous wide-brimmed hat, glaring like she could burn my house down with her eyes. I didn't engage, just let my cameras roll. Then the mail came. A manila envelope from Sunvale HOA. 3 fake citations for non-compliance, unapproved architecture, and threatening the president. Total fines? $20,000, with a threat of eviction. I scanned it, emailed it to my law firm's litigation partner, and started drafting a restraining order, an injunction to stop the HOA from touching my utilities, and a lawsuit for harassment and abusive process. That afternoon, my neighbor Ray, a Vietnam vet with a handshake like iron and a lawn you could play golf on, knocked. Linda's telling everyone you faked your deed, he said. Called you a squatter with a burner family. I blinked. Hey, what? He sighed. She's losing it. Dragged my wife into it. Said we're aiding a criminal. Jake, the whole street's fed up with her. Ray rounded up 5 neighbors, each with stories of Linda's tyranny, fines for untrimmed hedges, threats over a kid's lemonade stand. Their notarized statements went straight into my evidence binder. The city launched an investigation into Linda's forged utility forms and fake city letterhead, including a wild fax claiming my land was abandoned and up for seizure. Then she went nuclear, setting up folding tables in the community park for an emergency HOA vote to remove dangerous elements, aka me. I strolled over, phone recording, the sun hot on my neck. Morning, Linda, I said, calm as could be. This vote's illegal. My property's not yours. She didn't look up. This is for HOA members only. I held up my deed. I'm not a member, never was. This is libel, and every signature here's another count. A woman at the table frowned. We can get sued for this. I nodded. Yup. Half the crowd scattered. I filed a cease and desist that day, my fingers flying over the keyboard. The turning point came when Sarah, a young mom from across the street, slipped me a recording of a private HOA Zoom call. Linda was ranting about reclaiming rogue parcels and called my kids collateral pressure points. My jaw clenched so hard it hurt. Sarah had already sent the clip to the city. She's unhinged, she said. We're with you, Jake. I forwarded it to the city attorney, the DOJ, my legal team, everyone. This wasn't just a power trip, it was a calculated attack on my family. Monday morning, I sat in Assistant City Attorney Carla Ruiz's office, my binder tabbed and color-coded. Utility fraud, impersonation, fake citations, attempted land grab. Carla watched the Zoom clip, her pen frozen. She called your kids pressure points? This is vicious. The city filed charges: criminal mischief, stalking, and fraudulent misrepresentation. Linda's forged forms, tied to federal grant funds for local infrastructure, bumped it up to a felony. False statements in a federal matter. The county DA sent a marshal to her door with a subpoena. I watched from my window as she opened it in a bathrobe, her hands trembling. No theatrics, just the weight of reality. In court, it was a bloodbath. The judge, a no-nonsense woman with steel gray hair, shredded Linda's defense. You weren't acting as HOA president. You were a private citizen impersonating authority repeatedly. My team laid it all out. Videos, neighbor statements, forged letters, the Zoom clip, even the foam incident. The civil suit hit Linda with $500,000 in damages, most on her personally. The HOA was ordered to rewrite their bylaws, publicly admit my lot was exempt, and pay me compensation. I donated half to a local housing rights clinic, the rest to a top-tier security system and a backyard smoker big enough for a neighborhood cookout. The criminal case was cold. Linda faced stalking, harassment, fraud, and a federal felony. Her lawyer, a sweaty kid from a strip mall firm, pushed for a plea, citing stress. The judge wasn't buying it, especially after seeing footage of Linda muttering, "I'll make him disappear from this street," while slapping a fake fine on my mailbox. She got 45 days in county jail, 3 years probation, a $150,000 fine, and a mandatory psych evaluation. They cuffed her in court, her face blotchy, no grand speech, just silence as they let her out. The fallout was swift. Sunvale HOA ousted Linda, sent me a formal apology on embossed letterhead, and updated their maps. My story hit local news, then national columns, sparking talks of HOA reform across 3 counties. Linda slunk off to another HOA community, where I hear she keeps her lawn regulation perfect and her mouth shut. I bolted a sign to my gate, "Private property. No HOA. Trespassers prosecuted." That first free weekend, I fired up the smoker, the scent of brisket filling the air. Ellie and Max chased lightning bugs, their laughter echoing. I sank into a porch chair, a cold beer in hand, finally home. But here's what keeps me up sometimes. Linda thought she could break me because I was new. After all, she banked on me folding. How many others didn't fight? How many lost their homes to bullies like her, armed with clipboards and fake fines? What's it like where you live? Ever faced an HOA drunk on control, or someone who thought they could rewrite your life? Hit the comments, share your story. Let's talk about what home means and who gets to define it.